Hey everyone, welcome back to Underreported Stories, where I cover the news that CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News fail to report on or don't report on enough. And I'm so happy to be back in podcasting. I have just been all over the place, you guys. Like, literally, I'm never in my home. Summer has ended, I know that, but my summer doesn't end until I get married on October 5th. So I just am nonstop moving and grooving until that day. This past weekend, I was gone on a bachelorette trip, which, bachelorette trips are super controversial. I know people really hate them. I just stopped saying yes to the ones I don't want to go on. Like, I only say yes to the ones I want to go on, and then they're really fun. So, I don't know, maybe it's just the season of life that I'm in or whatever, but it was very cool. We saw a lot of wildlife. We went to, it's called Seaside, Florida. Cute little cozy town. If you've ever seen The Truman Show, it's where they shot The Truman Show, or at least part of it. It's kind of based off that area. Super picturesque, beautiful, obviously. So we were out on the ocean, or I guess it was the bay, and there were so many dolphins. So many. We went to look to see if it was dolphin mating season, and there was I think we saw at least 35 dolphins, maybe? It was crazy. And then there were jellyfish, too. Maybe I'm just, so sheltered. I don't like water and beaches and stuff. I know I'm crazy. I just don't like sand, but I got stung by a jellyfish 3 times. I have a couple bumps on my arm. I got a little lash from one of the jellyfish's, I don't know, tentacle things on my leg. Ow, it hurt. But when we did the boat day, which was the final day of the bachelorette, I typically don't drink on the last day of the bachelorette trips because you have to travel home and it's always a mess and people have been drinking for multiple days. It's just a recipe for disaster. So I'm telling the story, I swear, as a point. It's very funny. So I wasn't drinking on the final day that we did the bachelorette trip because like I said, just didn't want to drink and travel and all that stuff. So the last day comes around and we all had these hats, which I posted a picture on Instagram. It's super cute. We all had different hats that had a different saying for us. Mine was "Make day drinking great again." Of course, somebody made mine political. And so somebody on the bachelorette trip, her hat flew off and it was just in the water and we couldn't get the boat quite there to pick it up. So I jumped in the water to grab my friend's hat because I was the only sober person. I was like, yeah, I'm just going to do this for everybody. They're all just hammered, so whatever. So I jump in and I get up and the boat driver looks at me and goes, there are sharks in there. You didn't have to jump in because there are a lot of sharks in the water. And I was like, oh my gosh. I didn't used to have any fear of sharks or marine life or any of that stuff. And I feel like I'm developing a fear and I want to know, how do I stop the fear from developing? As I tell the story, I don't think I ever want to get back in the water again. I got stung by jellyfish. The boat driver is telling me about how I could have just died from a shark attack. I don't know what I was thinking, but if anybody could tell me how to stop a fear from developing, it would really help me out because I feel like I'm developing the most irrational fear. Or is it incredibly irrational? Because I feel like I'm not the only person that has that fear. I guess not. But let me know how to stop a fear from developing. I want to, because I don't want to be afraid of the water at all. So yeah, that was pretty much my weekend. And then I came back and yesterday was so fun because my friend Alex Clark, who a lot of people think that we're related in some way, shape, or form. No. Alex and I are we both happen to have the same last name. But Alex launched her new podcast called Culture Apothecary. If you guys don't know who Alex Clark is, she works with Turning Point USA, and she's had this podcast for a really long time called The Spillover. And she had really molded the show from a show about pop culture, which she was doing when she was my age, around 26, 27. And now she's in her 30s and she's kind of developed the show a little bit more into healing people and healing a sick culture through the Make America Healthy Again movement, kind of just broad strokes talking about health and wellness. And so obviously I just want to come on here and say congrats to my awesome friend for doing an amazing shift. She is, like I said, really been the stone or just the cornerstone of the Make America Healthy Again movement. And I love it. I love it because I don't always walk the walk, but I like to talk the talk about this stuff. And I personally think that there is a very fine line when living in America with how you eat and consume things, obviously I'm not making my own, I don't know. I'm not brushing my teeth. I think the first episode she did was with Will Witt, how he like doesn't brush his teeth, which maybe there's merit to that, but I'm still going to brush my teeth. But there is just so much to explore in this health and wellness. But when I saw all of this, I was just so fascinated because it is an inherently very conservative idea that like if the FDA would just change or outlaw things that are probably really horrible for us, that are downright poisonous for us, the free market's going to free market. Alternatives are going to come out that aren't poisonous. If we got rid of Oreos, because Oreos are actually full with like all these awful things, specifically like Red 40 dye, outlawing that too. Not that that's an Oreos, but like outlawing that. You outlaw that. The free market, like I said, is going to free market. We're going to have alternatives that are going to come out that are going to taste better and are going to be better, right? But I was thinking about this massive cultural shift when it comes to healthy eating and lifestyles in the conservative culture and how this is so inherently conservative, all of this. But it immediately gave me this feeling to warn you all. And I want to say this is not about Alex at all. This is about other brands that see the movement that she's created and that she has helped catapult other people to. There are going to be brands that are going to start trying to take over this conservative sphere and capitalize on our desires to be healthy. And so I just want you to be so wary and so aware that these simple solutions I'm starting to see, like some of these products that are being created to go along with this health and wellness culture, if it's simple, if it's a one-stop shop, this is how we got to the sick culture in the first place. And I'm kind of watching culture make a full circle, I feel like, or we're on the precipice of making a full circle where we understand that we're sick, right? And now we're starting to really talk about it in social media and find alternatives. But then the alternatives are going to start coming in and they're just going to be chock full of other crap because the FDA hasn't done anything about it. Do you see what I'm saying? So I'm like, I see that there's a marketplace for something that there wasn't a marketplace for even a year or two ago, that Alex has honestly created in part this marketplace. But I just wanted to come on here, use my platform, because I just had this gut feeling this morning to be like, I need to warn people. I need to warn people that there are bad actors in this good space. Alex not being one of them. Let me just preface that a million times over. It's not her. I just think that there are bad actors in this space that are going to come in and try to capitalize off of this, even though they don't believe it and their products don't align with that. Okay. I need to move on from my gut feeling and let's talk about what's on the docket for today's show. So we've got to talk about this insane story about Haitian migrants eating pets. What the fuck was this? I worked until 11:30 last night, guys, just doing research after research after research and putting video. Like, I've gone down a rabbit hole. So I'm actually going to debunk some of this story because, here we deal with facts and logic. That's like the motto of this show. So we're going to go into that story in all detail. You should feel very good about knowing all the facts. After that, CNN also, of all freaking places in the world, put out a hit piece on Kamala Harris. I never thought I'd say those words, but CNN put out a hit piece on Kamala the day of the debate, or the day before. I guess it came out yesterday and I'm talking about it today. But I've got thoughts on all of that. And I have a follow-up to my reporting last week about this crazy nonprofit that wasn't putting voting materials in front of people who liked NASCAR. And this sounds just like wacko, but I'll get you caught up on all of that. I'll explain the details. So without further ado, let's get into the 5 underreported stories that you need to know. Okay. I'm so nervous to get into this. So I just have this feeling like, my audience is going to hate me for telling you guys this. Like, I get super self-conscious about doing real reporting. Not super, like, whatever. I know I'm right. But at the same time, I see what's going on with this whole Haitian migrant story. And a lot of people want it to be real because a lot of people know that the border crisis is incredibly problematic. And two things can be true at once. The border crisis can be absolutely absurd. And the facts don't necessarily align with this narrative that illegal immigrants are eating pets in Ohio. So I'm just going to trust the fact that you guys are going to appreciate the accuracy of my reporting and stop being a weenie and get over it. So migrants are eating pets in the city of Springfield, Ohio. That has been the rumor that has been spread around. But here are the facts. So about 20,000, which is a huge number, but 20,000 Haitian migrants reportedly flooded the very small town of about 58,000 of Springfield, Ohio, in an effort to find jobs. So basically, the Biden administration gave these workers kind of special visas. So they're not illegal immigrants. They might have been illegal immigrants when they entered, but currently they're legal. They only had this because of the Biden administration approval. Okay, remember that. But they are legal, technically. They're allowed to be working. They're allowed to be here, okay? The problem here is that they're not assimilating to American culture. And it's not even that they're not assimilating. It's that they don't give a shit about assimilating. They don't want to. So it's been reported that some of these migrants have been eating geese and ducks. And there seems to be pictures and multiple reports of people, migrants, seemingly migrants, holding dead geese as well. Okay, it's kind of disturbing. But where the rumors went awry is that there were rumors circulating that a Haitian migrant who, or a specifically single Haitian migrant, was eating a cat. So I went and researched this, and the only report on someone's pet being eaten was by an Ohio native named Alexis Farrell. Now, the left is attacking this because Alexis Farrell is a black woman, and so the left is insinuating that Republicans are racist because they took one look at a black woman and just assumed that she was a Haitian migrant, when in fact she is an Ohio native. So they're not wrong in that she's not a Haitian migrant, okay? There's no indication that she's Haitian. She's not a migrant. She's just a psycho that ate a cat and was probably cracked out on a ton of drugs, okay? I don't believe that Republicans are racist for believing that when there have been reports about it from people in the town. But the fact of the matter is that Alexis Farrell is the only person that has been reported and confirmed by police sources to have eaten somebody's pet, and she's not Haitian. She's just a fucking psycho. But I say all of that to say there are real problems with the migrants in Ohio, though. Okay, they're causing a shit ton of problems. They very well may be eating duck and geese, which ducks and geese are different than pets. Okay, we have to categorize those into two things. No one sees the Canadian goose walking across the street and is like, oh, that's my pet, Like, we're not sitting here crying over that. That is so different than somebody's cat or dog, all right? But anyway, what's been going on, the real problems caused by these Haitians is that they refuse to learn how to drive. They don't want to learn American road laws. So one of them actually caused a school bus crash that resulted in the death of an 11-year-old. And it's been verified that landlords in the area are prioritizing migrants instead of the low-income locals. And so the community, left, right, and center, black or white or whatever, they all have problems with the migrants. So it's not this need to divvy up rumors, or there's no need to create rumors, okay? There are plenty of legitimate reasons to decry the immigration problem plaguing our cities, specifically in Springfield, Ohio, thanks to Biden and Kamala. But we don't need to make up stories to push the narrative that Biden and Kamala suck ass on immigration policy. Like, we don't need that. I thought Charlie Kirk had a really good rundown on this whole thing, so I'm just going to kind of go through his tweet on this story. It says, the media's new narrative on Springfield, Ohio is that it is a, quote, conspiracy theory, and that any stories about migrants killing pets or beheading ducks at local parks are debunked. Yeah, conspiracy theories always end up being true. That's why I have a hat called the Conspiracy Theorist hat. You can get it below, linked in the notes, okay? It's a great hat. You should buy it. It supports me. Anyway, Charlie's post goes on to say, in the Biden-Harris era, the quality of regime media has starkly gone down. That New York Times sloppily claims that missing pets and murdered ducks are, quote, false, when the reporter actually means unproven. But it's supported by a widespread outcry from Springfield residents. Locals are coming to Springfield City Council meetings to complain about killed animals and other problems well before anyone tweeted about it. Normal people have been posting in local Facebook groups. Concerned citizens have been calling their congressional offices for weeks. And then he attached a ton of different testimonies. Again, these people don't look like necessarily your quintessential conservative person. And then Charlie Kirk also said this. He posted this video or screenshot, I should say, that's the Springfield, Ohio community. It's a Facebook page, and people are saying, I've heard about these decapitated geese and ducks in Snyder Park. People have been seeing it firsthand and reporting about it. So definitely interesting to hear what the community members have to say. But I personally just want to caveat this by saying I am in my local, what's it called? It's like the Facebook group, but it's not a Facebook group. It's, why am I blanking on this? Oh my gosh, people are really screaming at me in the comments. Nextdoor app, that's what it's called. I'm like looking at my email for it. The Nextdoor app, oh my gosh. And I've got to say, it is just something about getting in some of these Facebook groups or some of these like Nextdoor app groups, like it just kind of breeds crazy. So it's not that I'm saying that this is not legit. I just think we need to call these rumors unproven, and we need to work on verifying them, because just because a resident says it doesn't mean it's true, okay? But just because they're not proven, those allegations right now, doesn't mean they won't be. And I'm going to be standing firm in the idea that pets are not being eaten by migrants right now, at least until I see more data, okay? I'm holding space for the idea that this very well could be true, and the media is doing a great job of blacking this story out, and all of the residents have pictures of dead animal carcasses that they're going to submit, okay? But right now, that is not what the information or the data shows me. Right now, it shows me that migrants are eating duck and geese, which is still disgusting and weird and graphic and awful, but they're not eating pets. And I just want to differentiate between that, because pets are so different than like animals that just live on the street. I feel like I'm beating a dead horse, or in this case, beating a dead duck. Oh, that's so messed up. I should not be allowed to have a podcast. Anyway, speaking of memes and like funny stuff, Ted Cruz put out this hilarious meme. Oh my gosh. It's so funny. Ted Cruz posted this on Instagram, and it says, it's two cats holding each other, and it says, please vote for Trump so Haitian immigrants don't eat us. Oh my gosh. It's not real, like I said, but the memeing, I cannot deny, is super freaking funny. Okay, let's move on to our next story. So a former aide of New York Governor Kathy Hochul was arrested on Chinese foreign agent charges. National Review has a comprehensive write-up on all of this. So the woman in question, her name is Linda Sun. She's a former aide to, like I said, New York Governor Kathy Hochul, and she acted at the direction of the Chinese government, aka the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party. In a statement, the U.S. Attorney's Office in New York said that Linda Sun was arrested Tuesday morning with her husband, Christopher Hugh. They are expected to be arraigned. Linda Sun, is a former deputy chief of staff to Kathy Hochul and served in numerous roles throughout New York state government since her first post under the administration of Andrew Cuomo in 2012. So she's been involved in New York state politics for, at a minimum, 12 years. Crazy. Prior to that, she served as Representative Grace Meng's chief of staff. So she's been in politics for even longer. And this woman served in the New York State Assembly. Grace Meng, not Linda Sue or Sun, whatever her freaking name is. Anyway, the U.S. Attorney Breon Peace said that while appearing to serve the people of New York, the defendant and her husband actually worked to further the interests of the Chinese government and the CCP. I keep chuckling because this is bats. Like, it's batshit that we have people in government that are aligned with the CCP, and it takes us 15 plus years to figure it out. Like, are we just losers and weenies? The American government can't figure this out. Oh, the federal government is alleging that Sun was an unregistered agent of the Chinese government and that her husband engaged in money laundering while coordinating the flow of millions of dollars in bribes from Chinese officials. Specifically, Chinese government and CCP officials directed her to block Taiwanese officials from engaging with officials in New York. So this individual, Linda Sun, is being charged with barring Taiwanese officials from working with New York politicos. So kind of doing the CCP's bidding at the New York state level. Oh, F this. Okay, everybody, everybody's kind of right, on both sides of the aisle. Everything seems to kind of be coming true. China's in bed with the Democrats and Russia's in bed with the Republicans. Like, it is on such a small scale, I will say. And I personally believe it's way worse when it's happening in government, when interference from a foreign nation is happening in our government. Like this story with Kathy Hochul or Fang and Eric Swalwell. Do y'all remember that story? Oh my gosh. I'm not even getting into that story, but as soon as this story came out, as soon as I saw this Hochul aide charged with Chinese foreign agent, like as soon as I read that headline, the next headline I read was that the DOJ indicted what we believe to be conservative media company Tenet Media. And gosh, I'm like, oh my gosh, dead to rights right before the election. Why are both of these people being like, why? Oh, I was sitting there. I was just like, as you guys can tell, like I'm floored. And honestly, I don't know how much to divulge on this because I know Lauren Chen. I joined Turning Point as a contributor in February, and I don't know her. I don't want to pretend like I want to say anything. I'll just tell you what happened, like what I know about her. I joined Turning Point as a contributor in February. She and I went to get coffee. We never talked about politics. I found her to be very kind. We talked about our careers. We are both Canadian, so we talked about immigrating here and our upbringings, and we talked about her kid, and I genuinely found her to be nice through our very minimal interactions. I wildly disagreed with some of her videos, but I didn't find Lauren Chen or Tenet to be anything crazy or outside the box. Nothing caught me as a red flag, which makes me think there is a little bit more to the story than just this DOJ indictment. Now, people that know her better maybe have different experiences, but all that to say, I didn't want to talk really about Lauren Chen or Tenet Media, but I did just find this interesting that these stories came out and dropped the exact same week. So weird. And just kind of really gives credence, both of these stories, to this idea that Democrats are in bed with China and Republicans are in bed with Russia. Oh gosh, you guys just try to be a little less basic for real. And okay, I want to get back to Linda's son, okay, because this is really about Linda's son and Democrats seemingly being in bed with not just China, I will say Iran too. They seem to be in bed with Iran too. And when you do cast your vote in November, okay, please send this to somebody and remind them that America's enemies are rooting more so for Democrats than they are for Republicans. Why would you want to vote for someone like Kamala or any Democrat, honestly, when our adversaries literally prefer Democrats? Probably that means that their interests are not aligned with the American people's interests. Let's raise some red flags, people, for real. Ugh. Anyway, let's move on to our next story before I just go crazy thinking about how basic everybody is. Okay, moving on to our next story. But actually, before we get into our next story, I want to talk about this next story, give you a preface. So this next story is going to be about this school district called Jefferson County School District. And when I was a reporter at Daily Wire covering education, I covered Jefferson County School District extensively. It was the Colorado hub of crazy education news for years. So as I read you this next story, just know that I feel incredibly vindicated for all the countless hours I spent reporting on this, because this school district is fucking nuts. So parents are suing Jefferson County School District for knowingly and repeatedly assigning children to bunk with members of the opposite sex who identify as the same sex on overnight trips, if you're picking up what I'm putting down. So this reads, a Colorado school district has knowingly and repeatedly assigned children to bunk with members of the opposite sex on overnight trips. Jeffco, that's what I'm going to call the school district. Jeffco's transgender student policy requires that all students on overnight visits are to be roomed with their gender identity rather than their actual sex. The district, then Jeffco, shared this policy with the trans-identifying students and chaperones, but not with the students or their parents. So the people who identify differently, they understood, they got these policies that said they could stay the night with people in their gender identity as opposed to their sex. And the parents and students did not get that. 3 parents, or 3 families, I should say, are suing the district on behalf of their children, saying that they did not learn about the policies until their children found themselves rooming with students and chaperones of the opposite gender on the trips. In one instance, this article says, again, this is from the Daily Wire, Mary Margaret Olahan, great journalist. She says the district assigned an 11-year-old girl to bunk with a trans-identifying boy. In another, it placed a trans-identifying 18-year-old female student, so a female who identifies as a male. Only a week earlier, this person identified as female. But wait, that's confusing. It placed a trans-identifying 18-year-old female student, so an actual female, in a cabin with 11 and 12-year-old boys. Got it. Okay, caught up. So this 18-year-old girl was in a cabin with 11 and 12-year-old boys, and this person allegedly supervised the 11 and 12-year-old boys changing and showering. Oh gosh, that's so freaking creepy. This article says, in both instances, students were uncomfortable with the rooming situation. The 11-year-old girl contacted her mother, who was also chaperoning the trip, and pulled her daughter from the room. Many of the boys under the care of the 18-year-old chaperone were at a remote location without cell phones and resorted to changing in their sleeping bags and refused to shower for the duration of the trip. That's so weird and perverted. I feel like I do a pretty good job. People that have followed me for a long time, you guys know, I try to put myself in other people's shoes, specifically liberal shoes, because it's important to see both sides of an argument when possible. And honestly, I think it makes you a better debater and just better at understanding your ideology when you get to test your biases and whatnot. Okay. So I'm a big advocate for that. And for a long, long time, I thought that liberals just wanted to make transgender identifying kids feel included. And that's all it was. It was they had the right heart and just the wrong way of going about it. Now, I have come to an incredibly different view on this because I put myself in the shoes of the students. Instead of putting myself in my opposing positions point of view, I really just put myself back in middle school or elementary school or anything like that, or even high school, right? And I really thought about how accommodating public schools actually are. If you have anything, any problem, they really will try their best to accommodate you. Now, they usually overcompensate and over-accommodate for the dumbest things and then can't actually help you when you need to be accommodated for, because public schools are whack. But generally speaking, if you are a sick student, if you're a student with disabilities, if you're a student with mental health problems nowadays, you can get some sort of accommodation for those problems on an overnight trip. If you have anxiety and you say, I can't sleep with anybody else, there's a good chance that the school district, if you talk to them and have an honest conversation with them, they will make accommodations for you. So in my head, I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, if there are special accommodations that can be made for sick students or students with mental health problems or students with anxiety, you've got to think that they would make special accommodations for transgender identifying students as well. And that maybe they would ask other people who they would want to room with, or allow the transgender identifying students to stay with each other, or allow the boy who identifies as a girl to have a separate room to themselves. That to me makes a lot of sense, because you can't just outlaw people being crazy or people having mental health issues or people identifying in different ways. You can't get rid of it. You really can't. But you should be making accommodations for the minority so that the majority doesn't feel uncomfortable. But that doesn't happen, because it's not about making accommodations. It's about shoving this down people's throats and getting kids to accept it while they're young. I find that very problematic. And when I put myself in the middle, not on any partisan aisle, I still come out conservative. And it doesn't help that the trans, ideology is shoved down other kids' throats. It doesn't help the trans kids at all, because the kid then feels bullied even more, because the other kids that are not transgender identifying are obviously resistant to this because they want to feel comfortable. So I just don't understand. It's a lose-lose situation. Just make the accommodations for the minority so the majority is not suffering. All that to say, congrats to these parents for having the balls to stand up to the school, because I get that natural reflex to want to be nice to people, but this isn't nice. This is just freaking insanity. And before we get into our next story, I need to let you know that today's show is sponsored by Freedom 2.0. Do you guys know how horrible your tap water is? Or even your Brita filter water? Like, ew. Oh, when's the last time you've changed your Brita filter, okay? Water quality is going down the drain in America. And if you want to ensure that you're getting the highest quality water while also supporting your values, well then look no further than Freedom 2.0. It's like H2O, but with a little sprinkle of freedom, yeah? Freedom 2.0 is an America First company dedicated to bringing you high quality reverse osmosis water. And the best part is you can set up a subscription so you never go thirsty. So go ahead and check out the link in the show notes in my bio. Supporting this company shows not only that you support American values, but that you support this show as well. So thank you very much. Okay, next up, I don't know what the bigger story is here. That Kamala Harris supported providing gender transition surgeries to detained migrants, or that CNN broke this story. Like, I'm mind fucked right now. I'm not going to get my hopes up that CNN is going to do good journalism all of a sudden. But I will say I saw this story and it was written by an author named Andrew Kaczynski. And I will say each outlet has good and bad people. You're going to find people that are liberal at Fox News and people that are like conservative adjacent at CNN. It is such a small minority, of course. I'm not coming across, literally my whole brand, guys, is about shitting on CNN and MSNBC and corporate media, okay? I built an entire brand off of that. So I'm not saying that there are a bunch of conservatives at CNN and a bunch of liberals at Fox. That's not what I'm saying. But there always is a little minority of people, insanity to pop through at some sort of journalistic institution. So sometimes I think that journalism comes down to the person and not always the institution. It is very, very rare. And Andrew Kaczynski is a very, very rare firm-minded journalist over at CNN. And he wrote this article that I'm about to read. Okay, so it says, as Kamala Harris pivots to being a moderate for her campaign for president, a 2019 questionnaire from a leading civil rights organization, it's called the ACLU, a very prominent civil rights organization, spotlights her past support for left-wing causes, such as taxpayer-funded gender transition surgeries for detained immigrants and federal prisoners. So the ACLU sends out this questionnaire to all of the candidates out there, kind of trying to divulge from the candidates what they like, what they don't like, and how the ACLU is going to align with each candidate based on how they fill out this questionnaire. So at the time, Kamala Harris was a senator, and she filled out this form when she was running for president. This was in 2019, but she was running for 2020 presidency. And in that form, she expressed support for decriminalizing federal drug possession for personal use, which is obviously hilarious given that she put so many people away for drug use, for personal drug use. And then she also was in favor of sweeping reductions for immigration and customs enforcement, which is ICE, classically known as. And so she was trying to pledge to end immigration. Like, she had all these very, very far left policies, as noted. The questionnaire received no media attention, and a spokesperson for the ACLU claimed it had been live on the website since 2019, but it looks like the ACLU's website actually re-uploaded the questionnaire last month after Kamala Harris became the presumptive Democratic nominee. Now, can we just talk about how CNN is calling out the media for not talking about an underreported story and also saying that the ACLU, like calling out the ACLU, like what is happening? CNN is kind of like based for a second. What the hell? So it goes on to say, this article, CNN was unable to find questionnaires filled out by other candidates from the 2020 campaign that the ACLU had reposted, like literally calling them out. I'm dead. It says Harris has acknowledged that some of her stances have evolved over time. You could say that. That's very generous. But she holds core beliefs that remain unshakable. The ACLU questionnaire, which was sent to all Democratic and Republican candidates during the 2020 presidential campaign, provides a clear record of Harris's far left stances. Some candidates did not respond to the questionnaire, including Joe Biden. The ACLU later ran attack ads against Biden for not answering. Frickin' nuts. So the craziest part, I think, is that Kamala didn't have to answer this. The leading contender in the race, obviously the president who won, allegedly, Joe Biden, he didn't fill out this campaign questionnaire form, but Kamala Harris did, and now she's got to answer for all of this. It says the ACLU also had volunteers question candidates at public town halls and later posted videos on their website of their responses. In one of them, Kamala was asked by a voter if she supports adding a third gender to federal identification cards, which she responded with, Sure, Jan. Okay, now we know what's going on here. Reminder that all of this came out in the lead up to the debate that's happening tonight, right? So moderators, in my opinion, better be asking her about this. I mean, if they don't have a question about this flip-flopping, at least one. I mean, there should be one for literally every time they talk about a policy position. They should bring up Kamala's 2019 position, compare it to her current one, and try and get answers. That's the bare minimum of their job. But if they ask even once, I will say, watch the media have a fucking meltdown if there's any reasonable question about Kamala Harris's flip-flopping. Every Democratic strategist and CNN and on the left will have meltdown after meltdown if the debate moderators ask Kamala a question about her change in record from 2019 to 2024. Then they're going to go off, watch right after, they're going to go off and say that the moderators were biased towards Trump. Oh my gosh. That's like, come on, guys. We can't possibly believe that the moderators are biased towards Donald Trump if they ask Kamala a question. That's so batty. But just watch. I'm sure I'm going to be able to clip that little segment that I just said about the left going batshit crazy and then be able to cut it next to the left going batshit crazy. Just watch. Guarantee it. Anyway, let's talk about the policy aspect of this leading up to the debate tonight, because I know a lot of people watch the show the next morning because it comes out late, but Trump's policies, I will say, they're kind of all over the place, but he's also not afraid to talk about them. So he's talked about a lot of different stuff. He's talked about all of his policies. Kamala seems really afraid to talk about her position. So I think it's going to be very interesting in the debate tonight to see where she actually lands, because I think she's afraid to say anything, because if she says it out loud, people are going to hit her from either the far left or the middle. The middle is going to be like, what the hell? That's not going to win us the election if you're talking about, crazy far left policy prescriptions. But if she doesn't say those things, the far left is going to go, we're not voting for you. You're not our person. You're not our candidate. And you're going to have Biden 2.0. So either way, she's got to finally, today has got to be the day where she talks about this, because in all honesty, it's not fair to any American to not know what we're voting for. It's actually bullshit. But I'm very fascinated to watch this debate tonight. And on Thursday's podcast, because, we only do the show Tuesdays and Thursdays, the full Underreported Stories show, I'm going to be joined by a guest to break down the debate night coverage. It'll be about 42 hours after the debate that the video goes up. So it won't be the whole episode, but you will definitely get all of my thoughts on the debate Thursday. Or if you're like, okay, I need to know Chrissy's thoughts now because I'm just such a political genius, LOL. You can always check my X feed or my Instagram feed for live thoughts. They are linked in the show notes below. But let us get into our final story today. So last week on Tuesday, we talked about this ridiculous nonprofit getting into potential hot water with the IRS. So if you didn't watch last week's show, let me get you up to speed. So there's an organization called the Voter Participation Center. We'll call it the VPC. And the VPC puts out information on how to register to vote. And according to a new report, the VPC is purposefully not promoting their campaign, which just registers people to vote, if they like the PGA Tour, Duck Dynasty, the Indy 500, or the Daytona 500. That means all interests that are common among Republican men. So they are targeting their campaign not at everybody, which is what a nonprofit is supposed to do. They're only targeting at people that like certain things on Facebook. And so this VPC said, don't target people that like Duck Dynasty. Don't target people that like NASCAR. Instead, target people that like hot yoga, Taylor Swift, Jordan Peele, and Patagonia, which are obviously interests among your typical liberal, right? So now we have an update on this story. Congresswoman Claudia Tenney is calling for an investigation into this organization. So she is a Republican from New York, and she wrote a letter to the IRS on Wednesday that the VPC is sidestepping federal tax laws that require charities to conduct voter registration activities in a neutral and nonpartisan manner. That is how you cannot be a nonprofit if you want to be inherently political. It's illegal. You can't be a nonprofit and do that. You can say things like conservative and liberal. You can harken back to things like the federal government, but you cannot talk about Republicans and Democrats. You cannot outwardly provide services to one side of the aisle and not the other, right? The Congresswoman's letter came on the heels of this Free Beacon report that I just kind of broke down for you guys. In addition, the VPC has paid more than a combined $57 million to a pair of Democratic micro-targeting firms that both claim credit for delivering wins for left-wing lawmakers in hotly contested House, Senate, and gubernatorial races. So this organization, this nonprofit, on top of clearly targeting people based on their political ideology, they are also paying Democratic micro-targeting organizations. So people that help spread their message just to Democrats. Just as a heads up, okay? That's where we're at in this story. And now a congresswoman has obviously called on the IRS to investigate what seems clear as day to be fraudulent use of a nonprofit, or what's commonly understood in IRS code as the 501c3 status. You hear that a lot. It just means nonprofit organization, and it means you can't be that inherently political. And I know that the story might kind of sound boring depending on who you are, but if you want a little context on this, the reason it's so important is because this is semi-historical. So the Obama Department of Justice, under Biden's control, technically too. So yes, it was Obama, but also Biden was Obama's vice president. So Obama, Biden, under their discretion, the Department of Justice weaponized the IRS to go after conservative organizations and conservative nonprofits, conservative 501c3s. This happened in the early 2010s. And so the fact that liberal voter organizations, liberal nonprofits, liberal 501c3s would so blatantly violate this code of conduct, while conservative nonprofits are afraid to take actions that are actually completely legal out of fear that the Biden IRS will possibly weaponize them or weaponize itself against them. It's why narratives about the deep state are such a fixture in conservative media, because let's be honest, it's founded in truth. The deep state is incredibly partisan and used against conservatives, and clearly not weaponized against liberals. So that's why it's really important, and it's a good story to keep up on. Kind of just fun. I feel like you just learned something, even though that story is maybe not the most interesting. It's just interesting to learn about. So anyway, I want to do next the Story Seekers group. So I called the people that follow me Story Seekers because obviously we're seeking underreported stories, right? Duh. So I have a community on my Instagram where we chat about what's on your mind, and you guys can meet like-minded people. So I highly recommend that you guys go to the channel. Basically, you just go to my Instagram. You can see it in the show notes. You'll go to the Story Seekers channel. You can join. It's free. It's fun. And today, Story Seeker Dave asked me to chat about the alleged government shutdown over voter rights. So I'm going to catch you up to speed on kind of a wonky political topic in the best Chrissy Clark manner I possibly can. So in case you missed it, Congress every year goes on August recess, and then in September, they kind of get back into the full swing of politics, but kinda, because Congress members are also trying to do their work in DC. They have to do it, but they want to get it done ASAP so they can go home, fundraise, and campaign more, because they're up for election too. It's not just Kamala and Trump. It's all people, not everybody, but most people, especially Congress. So they want to go and they want to campaign. But funding for the national government expires in 3 weeks. And back to rudimentary history or rudimentary social studies lessons, the legislative branch is tasked with creating our budgets, right? So in 3 weeks, which is, I believe, Monday, September 30th, the federal government, the funding will run dry. So the House of Representatives needs to set and pass a budget before October 1st. So what Mike Johnson, he's the Republican Speaker of the House, he has created a budget that includes the passage of what is known as the SAVE Act. The SAVE Act is a bill that requires proof of citizenship in order to register to vote. And Democrats are like all over the media yelling that this is so evil, Jim Crow 2.0, and Mike Johnson is putting the fate of democracy at stake, whatever. Your typical liberal talking points, right? But here's the truth, or at least my truth. Oh, wait, did I just say that? Here's my opinion, not my truth. Oh my gosh, someone shoot me. Here's my opinion. Neither party is going to let the government's funding run out, because whichever party refuses to cooperate in these negotiations is going to look bad to the people following along, to us, to people that follow this stuff. It's going to make the party look chaotic, right? Which is the last thing that Republicans or Democrats need to happen right before an election where it's a statistical tie. So my suspicion makes me believe that Congress is going to pass some sort of like continuing resolution, which is wonk talk for like a resolution that doesn't fund the government long-term, but a very short-term resolution to fund the government until at least past the election. I've heard the date March something, March 5th, something like that. March tossed around as well. But I'm thinking that no matter what, they're going to pass some sort of short-term bill that is going to fund the government past the election. But Dave, story seeker Dave, his specific question was about the SAVE Act, or the voter ID bill put into this budget, or kind of in tandem with this budget. Whether it gets passed or not, either way, I think this was a genius strategy, I should say, for Republicans. Either Dems are going to have to vote this down, meaning Republicans can then run on Democrats wanting illegals and felons to vote in elections and not securing our elections. A majority of Americans believe that you should have to show an ID or show proof of citizenship in order to vote. That is a very popular thing. So Republicans will either run on a very popular messaging campaign, or it gets passed and Democrats pass it and it's better for our elections. It's a win-win situation either way for Republicans. So I've got to say, props to Mike Johnson on that. That is a genius move. And actually, I'm curious about your guys' thoughts on Mike Johnson. I know most people hate the House of Representatives, specifically these establishments. I'll call them rhino characters or whatever. I think Mike Johnson is an interesting character, because I get that we hate the establishment characters. I do too, especially on a national level. But at the same time, it takes establishment characters to understand such a complex system, and then not only understand it, but manipulate it, right? Because that's ultimately what you're doing. If you're the speaker, you're manipulating people in order to get what you want, in order to move your party's agenda forward, right? So for being an insider, semi-establishment character, he's doing a good job, I think. He's way better than McCarthy. I know that's not saying much. I know this is a little wonky, but I don't think he's doing that bad of a job. I'm very interested to see if Republicans go on and re-elect him after this election cycle. I'm going to be very interested to see. But let me know your thoughts on Mike Johnson if you've got strong feelings about them or him. Why am I saying them? What is this? Mike Johnson is not transgender. But actually, before we wrap up today's show, we have a round of Is It Real or Is It Satire? And it's about transgender issues. So without further ado, I present to you my favorite segment, Is It Real or Is It Satire?
Is it real or is it satire?
You cannot be serious!
A teacher in Rhode Island threatened to attack a store owner with a wooden board while wearing a shirt that says, "Proud Trans Teacher." Is it real or is it satire? 10 years ago, this would be incredible satire. In 2024, it's real. So I'd like to introduce you to Andrew Stewart, a Rhode Island teacher who attacked a store worker with a wooden plank while ripping down Trump signs.
You touch me with that, you're fucking dead.
Fuck. Yes, my name is Henry Gardner, and I work at the Trump store on Post Road.
Hit me with that,
and I
you're
got a
fucking
guy
dead.
out here threatening my life. He's got a piece of wood trying to hit me, and he's trying to tear my signs up. I'm at 1565 Post Road. Happy Pride.
Yes, that person is actually teaching children in Rhode Island, but not for long, because according to videos posted by this teacher, Andrew Stewart is on sick leave for his political and cultural beliefs.
School teacher, and I'm currently out on sick leave owing to injury in performance of job-related tasks in the workplace caused by classroom transphobia and homophobia.
I cannot stand this idea where people blame the consequences of their actions on characteristics they have. This person, Andrew Stewart, is blaming the school district for homophobia or transphobia or whatever that person said for putting Andrew Stewart on leave when it was Andrew Stewart's actions that resulted in a leave of absence. So it irks me to no degree, to no end. And tomorrow I actually have a whole video coming out on YouTube, on Rumble, on X about a race hoax that started because someone else couldn't take responsibility for their damn actions. So make sure you're subscribed on YouTube, Rumble, and X to get those videos because it's a good one. And Thursday, we're going to be back for another podcast episode with my special guest, Cam Higbee. He's a journalist who does those on-the-ground reports. We've actually covered a lot of his stuff. He's an awesome journalist, and he just got kicked off permanently of YouTube. So he's going to be on to talk all things post-debate, censorship. It's going to be a great conversation. But if you're a real one and made it to the end of the show, will you drop the jellyfish emoji as an homage to my jellyfish stings? Oh my gosh. Pray for my recovery. No, I'm being so dramatic. I'm totally fine. Anyway, thank you guys, friends. Thank you guys, friends. You guys, I think I'm having a spaz, a stroke. Oh my gosh. Okay. Thank you, friends. I will see you guys next time. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked what you heard, please be sure to give this video a thumbs up and leave a comment about how beautiful, stunning, and funny I am. And if you want more content based in logic, be sure to click over here for more videos and clips of my show. If you have the means to financially support the show, consider purchasing from my merch line, BASED Apparel, linked right below. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you back here next time. Bye, friends.